Let's talk about Bitcoin.
Let's talk rocket ships.
Can anything slow down the surge we have seen in Bitcoin?
It's the most popular digital currency on the planet. Bitcoin's made some people real rich real fast, and some major companies are buying in.
The world's richest man now investing $1.5 billion.
What's happening with Bitcoin is that people are increasingly learning that it can be trusted.
But plenty of big names won't go near it.
Bitcoin has no unique value at all. It's a delusion, basically.
So can Bitcoin be trusted? How does it work? And what's Bitcoin really worth? There are thousands of cryptocurrencies out there, but the one most people are talking about is Bitcoin. It's a digital currency, but instead of dollars and cents, it's Bitcoins and Satoshis. And one Bitcoin is worth 100 million Satoshis. But unlike the dollar, euro, or yen, this currency isn't controlled by a government. That's what makes Bitcoin revolutionary, and to some people, a bit scary. It used to be simple. Countries would peg their currencies to the gold stashed in their central bank. But currencies are now just paper, metal, or a number in your bank account, and its value is guaranteed by a government. It's why we trust it. We also trust the banking system to move our money, especially online. So when person A sends $100 to person B, the banks make sure that amount is subtracted from one account and added to the other. And banks update their ledgers to make sure people aren't spending money they no longer have. And of course, banks charge fees for all that work to verify transactions. So what if there was a way to cut out the banks? Well, that was the original thinking behind Bitcoin. The idea was posted online in 2008, describing a peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that you can send from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Its creator or creators used the name Satoshi Nakamoto.
Nobody actually, to this day, is able to say who this creator was. What we do know is that the Bitcoin white paper was published about 1 month after the big crash of the 2008 financial system.
It was an historic day with Wall Street shaken to its very foundation today.
The losses staggering, the fear climbing.
It was a wake-up call, exposing risky banking practices. Many people lost everything, including their faith in the financial system. Coincidence or not, Bitcoin turned up at the same time. And 10 years later, it's still going. So Bitcoin is not controlled by a government. It's not a bank or a company. Instead, it's open source software that runs itself, or more accurately, is run by lots of people. Here's how. So first up, it's called a cryptocurrency because Bitcoin uses encryption to keep it secure. And instead of bank accounts, people trading Bitcoin have two keys. One's private and one is public. They're not actual keys, but bits of encrypted code that fit together. If person A needs to get Bitcoin to person B, they send it to B's public key. Think of it like the number on an ATM card. Person A uses their private key to encrypt the transaction, and person B uses their private key to decrypt it and get their Bitcoin. Those private keys are like the PIN to the ATM card. Now, instead of a bank verifying that transaction, it's done by a huge network of computers around the world, and they all have identical copies of Bitcoin's ledger. It's a record of every transaction ever made that's constantly being updated. So if there's any kind of fraud, the whole network knows about it. That decentralized ledger is called blockchain. Bitcoin transactions are bundled into blocks and linked together, and each block contains a bit of code from the previous one, creating a chronology that's supposed to be impossible to mess with.
All the participants in the Bitcoin network are agreeing that these transactions are what they are, and there's group witnessing of the transactions.
So who are these witnesses? Well, they're actual people called miners with powerful computers.
This is my mining farm at my apartment. Down here is a 6 GPU RX 570 mining rig.
Miners used to do it all on their own. Some still do. But Bitcoin's grown, and now it takes so much more computing power and much more energy. So miners often band together in what are called pools. Some of them build huge warehouses of servers called farms. The big ones are in China, Russia, but also places like Iceland, where it's just easier to cool those servers.
There's a lot of maintenance involved. There's a lot of technical know-how involved.
There's also a lot of energy involved. A Cambridge University study says the entire global Bitcoin network uses more electricity than Argentina.
I think that people have this idea that it's like gold mining, but in essence, it's a lot more like just running like the Visa network. It's just running computers that help people transact.
But what's in it for all those miners? Well, remember, Bitcoin isn't a company, so miners don't get a salary for adding to the blockchain. Instead, the system rewards them in Bitcoin. So, transactions are actually floating around on the Bitcoin network, like in a waiting room, ready to be verified. Miners look for new transactions to bundle them in blocks. But before they can add a block to the chain, there's an extra security check that's pretty unconventional. Mining computers have to compete to solve a coding puzzle. If a miner solves that puzzle first, the block and all the transactions inside it are added to the blockchain. And that miner is rewarded with some Bitcoin.
Literally, any way you slice it, it's profitable.
Another appeal among crypto fans is this idea that Bitcoin is seen as a hedge against inflation. Other currencies suffer when, for example, more money is printed, diluting the pool and weakening its value. Bitcoin gets around the inflation problem by capping its supply at 21 million Bitcoins. At the moment, roughly 17 million Bitcoins are already in circulation, but there are a few million missing because some people have lost their private keys. So how does all the remaining Bitcoin keep its value? Well, the system slows that supply down. One way is by cutting the mining rewards in half every 4 years. In 2009, the reward was 50 Bitcoins for every block of transactions added to the blockchain. 4 years later, it was 25, and so on. In other words, it's basic supply and demand. Bitcoin's supply is capped while demand grows, for now at least. So more people are coming around to the idea that Bitcoin could rival gold eventually. But so far, Bitcoin's value against other currencies has been far from stable. It's gone up and down like crazy.
Bitcoin plunging nearly 14%.
Bitcoin is back up about 10% after a volatile weekend.
The volatility is reflective of lots of speculative investment. So I think that speculative investment is sort of thinking about Bitcoin as sort of a get-rich-quick scheme.
One of the big runs was when PayPal said it would allow users to buy, hold, and sell Bitcoin. Others followed suit, including Tesla, owned by Elon Musk, which said it would start accepting Bitcoin as payment too.
It has not become mainstream, but it is in the process of becoming mainstream.
But is it? Not everyone gets it or believes in it. Yes, companies like Microsoft, PayPal, and MasterCard accept Bitcoin. You can use Bitcoin to buy gift cards at Nike or Starbucks, but its use is limited. And while crypto enthusiasts think Bitcoin's value is going to climb even higher, maybe even to the point where one Bitcoin is worth a few $100,000, others say it's just a bubble.
The only thing is a speculative, self-fulfilling kind of rise, and that rise is driven totally by manipulation.
There are other concerns with Bitcoin too. If something goes wrong, you forget or lose your private key, for example, there's no customer service to call. Another issue is Bitcoin being misused. Criminals like it because it's anonymous.
The 30-year-old is accused of running a money laundering syndicate, converting almost $5.5 million of cash into Bitcoin.
So regulators are already looking into it.
Cryptocurrencies are a particular concern. We really need to examine ways in which we can curtail their use and make sure that anti-money laundering doesn't occur through those channels.
In the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin is still a pretty new concept. Some people are willing to take a big financial risk to chase a potential fortune. Others think there's no way a piece of code is worth tens of thousands of dollars. It boils down to trust. Like any currency, for Bitcoin to work, enough people have to buy into it. There's obviously a lot more to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, plenty of stuff that we didn't have time to get into. Let us know if you'd like another episode on it. I'll see you next week.